So my name's Toby Peach. I'm a theatre maker. I have been making a show over the last 2 years now, which is about my experience of having Hodgkin's lymphoma when I was 19 and then again when I was 21. And so I've been making the show. It went up to Edinburgh last year. It did quite well, and we're now touring it around the UK. So I made a 5-minute short story about 3 years into being in remission, and I wrote that story just because I was like, oh, I've never spoken about it. I've never even looked at it myself at what had happened, because I think that's what a lot of people do, especially young people. When you've had something like that, you kind of just go, yeah, I'm okay now, and you kind of run away in a way just because you want to get back to your life and want to get back to living and things. And when I wrote that short story, I was like, wow, this was a major thing in my life, and I didn't realise. So I started to go away and research and wanted to know what it was. I wanted to know what cancer was, but also what were the treatments that I'd had as well, because I realised I just sat there. I just agreed to everything that had happened and went along with it, and so I had no idea. And then I realised that there was a story here to tell, especially because when I started making it, it was a case that cancer research said it was 1 in 3, and then it was updated about 6 months later when I went back to check my facts and to 1 in 2, and I was like, if it's one in 2 people are going to have it, should we not know what we're going to face? What is this thing that we hear so often about? The first thing I wanted to do when I was making it was because I really wanted to know the science of everything. I got really geeky about the science of cancer because I'm not from a science background. But then it slowly became apparent that I wasn't the one that had beaten this thing. I think so often we look at how it's a fight and the person is fighting cancer and things. And when I found out that cancer was just me, that was quite a big deal for me, because I didn't understand that at all. I mean, I was quite young, so it's slightly more understandable that I might not know what it is. But when I realised it was just me fighting me, so it was kind of it was a rebellion in the fact. It was a case, well, who saved me? And like, if I didn't save myself, if I wasn't the one doing the fighting, who is it that saved my life? And I think that's the important thing when we talk about, I do want to raise awareness about what cancer is and what happens when you go through an experience with cancer. But somebody said recently to me, what does raising awareness actually do? What does it make a difference if Joe Bloggs knows what cancer is, that knows that it's themselves? And the answer to that is that we know then what we have to do to give us a chance of survival. We know that it's not about being about that one person. It helps to be positive, and it really does help to be nice to those people who are trying to save your life, but it's about how far we've come, and through the developments through science and research and things, but it's where we're going as well. And I think that's the importance of raising awareness, knowing what it is and knowing that cancer is just you, and what happens when you go through it makes you realise that the thing that is going to save people's lives in the future, it's the thing that we need to be supporting, and it's the thing that we need to be encouraging more. And that's what I try to talk about in the show. And I talk about the research and the development, but also the fact that I live in a country where the NHS paid for my treatment and saved my life, actually just next door at UCH. And there's an incredible fact of, I looked up how much I was worth, and just the chemicals alone is £50,000. And so when I do the show, it's an element of looking at who are the people that saved my life. Well, one of the people that saved my life are the taxpayers, the people who fund the NHS, and it gets a lot of bad credit all the time, at the moment especially. But it saved my life, and the taxpayers saved my life, and I think that's an incredible thing to thank people for. So the show and the presentation, I think, is trying to make the world of cancer accessible, and I use a lot of theatrical terms to do that. And I hope to be very honest. It's like that's the point of the show, is not to go away from any of the truth that comes from it, and to try and make some of those stories accessible. I probably won't be using as much scientific talk as some of the other speakers, I'm sure, as I do describe cancer. I try to describe it as a selfie, really, and that's how I explain what it is. And also that it's like a keyboard that gets stuck down and it just copies itself, replicates I. So it's probably not going to be as scientifically sound as those, but it is going to be a truthful story about a patient's, I don't want to say the word journey, nobody likes the word journey with cancer, but it's a patient's experience with cancer and coming to terms with a number of things that come from it, like learning to cope with having chemotherapy, lots of cocktails, learning to cope with your mortality, what happens when you see death as a side effect on those forms, having stem cell transplant. I didn't know that Gene Wilder, who's Willy Wonka, the original Willy Wonka, he had a stem cell transplant, and so I talk about how I'm weirdly related to Gene Wilder, and then I think the important thing, the message that I try to get across is probably the hardest word I find to talk about with cancer is hope, and I understand why, and I say it very cautiously, but it's a word that we are needing to talk about because I think it progresses us further. 69 years ago, Sidney Farber, who was the father of chemotherapy, started having treatments, started chemotherapy on children with leukemia. And I just know that like in those 69 years, we have come to a point where we are able to give people a 50% survival rate of up to 10 years, I believe cancer research have said recently. And so we've progressed this far. I mean, we have so much further to go, but it's that progression that has given me a chance of survival, and that number is hopefully going to improve as we research and we develop and we go further. And so that's why I want to talk about hope, and that's what I try to talk about in my speech.